They told the family it was a routine surgery, the kind performed thousands of times a day in hospitals across the country. The kind doctors schedule before lunch and forget by dinner. Nothing serious, nothing to worry about. A simple procedure, less than an hour under anesthesia, a short recovery, and then life would go back to normal. Those words settled into the family's hearts like a warm blanket, calming every fear. They believed them. They had no reason not to. The patient was a man who had built his life brick by brick, mistake by mistake, sacrifice by sacrifice. He was a husband who never forgot birthdays, a father who worked overtime without complaint, a son who called his mother every Sunday no matter how busy he was. He had gone to the doctor because of discomfort he could no longer ignore, a persistent pain that interrupted his sleep. The diagnosis came quickly and confidently. Minor issue. Easily fixable. Surgery recommended, but nothing urgent. The doctor smiled as he explained the procedure, tapping the chart with relaxed fingers, using phrases like low risk and standard protocol. The family gathered around the kitchen table that night. They talked about schedules, who would drive him to the hospital, who would pick up the kids from school, what dinner would be ready when he came home. There were jokes, light teasing, even a sense of relief that the problem had been identified and would soon be resolved. No one cried. No one prayed in desperation. This was not one of those moments, they thought. This was just a small detour in a long, stable life. The morning of the surgery arrived with ordinary sounds. An alarm clock ringing too early. Coffee brewing. Shoes being tied. The hospital lobby smelled like disinfectant and quiet anxiety, but even that felt distant, unreal. He signed forms without reading them closely, pages filled with dense language about risks and complications that seemed irrelevant. He squeezed his wife's hand and told her he would see her soon. His children waved, more annoyed by the early hour than worried about their father. When the nurses wheeled him away, there was no dramatic pause, no sudden fear. Just a curtain closing, a door swinging shut, the quiet hum of medical efficiency taking over. The family sat in the waiting room, scrolling on phones, watching muted television screens, sipping bad coffee. Time passed slowly but not painfully. They expected an update any minute. The first delay felt insignificant. Surgeries run long sometimes, they were told. Nothing to worry about. Another hour passed. Then another. The air in the waiting room grew heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. His wife stopped checking her phone. She stared at the hallway instead, her heart beginning to beat faster for reasons she couldn't explain. When the doctor finally appeared, his face was different. The smile was gone. His shoulders were tense, his eyes avoiding direct contact. He asked them to step into a private room. That was the moment the world cracked, though no one fully understood it yet. The words came slowly, carefully chosen, but each one landed like a blow. There had been complications. Unexpected bleeding. A reaction to anesthesia. They were doing everything they could. Everything they could. That phrase echoed in the small room, bouncing off sterile walls. The children didn't fully grasp what was happening, but they saw their mother's face turn pale, saw her hand shake as she asked questions that didn't seem to have clear answers. Minutes stretched into hours. Machines beeped behind closed doors. Doctors whispered in hallways. Nurses moved faster than before. When they were finally allowed to see him, he didn't look like himself. Tubes covered his body. Machines breathed for him. His skin was a color they had never seen before. His wife spoke his name softly, convinced he could hear her, convinced that love could pull him back. She told him about home, about the kids, about dinner waiting for him. She promised him everything would be okay, even as doubt clawed at her chest. The next days blurred together into a fog of medical jargon and false hope. Infection. Organ failure. Neurological damage. Words that sounded unreal, disconnected from the man they knew. Doctors explained, apologized, explained again. Some avoided eye contact. Others spoke in rehearsed tones, as if following a script they had memorized long ago. Each update felt worse than the last, but there was always a hint of hope, just enough to keep the family clinging on. Sleep became impossible. The hospital room never truly went dark, and neither did their minds. His wife slept in a chair beside his bed, waking at every change in the machine's rhythm. The children tried to be brave, whispering to each other in corners, asking questions no one could answer. Extended family arrived, bringing food no one ate, offering comfort that felt hollow. Bills began to arrive even before decisions were made. Statements filled with numbers that made no sense, charges for treatments that hadn't worked, for machines that kept him alive but not living. The family stopped opening envelopes. Money felt irrelevant compared to the quiet terror of losing him, yet it loomed in the background like a shadow that refused to leave. Then came the conversation no family is ever prepared for. The doctor sat down, hands folded, voice low. They had reached a point where recovery was no longer possible. Brain activity was minimal. Even if he survived, he would never be the same. Never wake up. Never speak. Never recognize them. The words settled into the room like ash after a fire, coating everything with disbelief. His wife felt something inside her break. This was not the agreement. This was not how it was supposed to go. He went in for a routine surgery. He was supposed to come home. She screamed, then cried, then sat in silence, staring at the floor as if it might offer answers. The children clung to her, their world collapsing in ways they couldn't articulate. The decision to let him go was the hardest moment of their lives. It felt like betrayal, like giving up, even though every rational part of their minds knew there was no other choice. They held his hands as machines were turned off, as the room grew unbearably quiet. His heart stopped, and with it, the life they knew ended too. The days after the funeral passed in slow motion. The house felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. His shoes were still by the door. His coffee mug sat in the sink. His phone buzzed with reminders and messages that would never be answered. Grief came in waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent. His wife couldn't bring herself to sleep in their bed. The children waited for him to come home, even after they had been told he never would. Anger soon followed grief. Questions that had been pushed aside now demanded answers. How could a routine surgery go so wrong? Why hadn't they been warned? Why did no one seem accountable? The family requested medical records, pages and pages of notes filled with abbreviations and timelines that didn't add up. There were discrepancies, delays, moments where protocol had not been followed. They learned that a small mistake had been made early in the procedure. A dosage miscalculated. A warning sign overlooked. Nothing dramatic, nothing that seemed catastrophic in the moment. But medicine is a chain of events, and one weak link had been enough to destroy everything. The hospital expressed condolences. They sent letters filled with careful language and vague sympathy. No admission of fault. No acknowledgement of error. Just sadness, they said, and regret. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The family's life began to unravel in practical ways too. Without his income, finances collapsed. His wife took on multiple jobs, exhaustion becoming her constant companion. The children struggled in school, their grades slipping as grief stole their focus. Nights were filled with nightmares, days with forced smiles. Relationships strained under the weight of loss. Friends didn't know what to say and slowly stopped calling. Family members argued over decisions, over money, over blame. Grief turned inward, poisoning moments that should have brought comfort. His wife felt isolated, trapped between missing him and resenting the world for continuing without him. She replayed that morning over and over in her mind. The smile he gave her. The casual goodbye. The trust she placed in strangers wearing white coats. If she had known, would she have stopped him? Would she have asked more questions, demanded more tests, chosen a different hospital? Guilt wrapped around her like a second skin, irrational but relentless. Years passed, but the loss never softened into something manageable. It remained sharp, an open wound that refused to heal. The children grew older without their father, milestones marked by his absence. Graduations, birthdays, weddings he would never attend. Each moment carried a quiet ache, a reminder of what had been taken from them. The phrase routine surgery became unbearable to hear. It appeared in commercials, conversations, casual remarks from people who had no idea how dangerous those words could be. For this family, routine meant nothing. It meant devastation. It meant trust broken beyond repair. They eventually sought legal action, not for money, but for acknowledgement. For truth. The process was long and painful, reopening wounds they had tried to stitch closed. Depositions, expert opinions, endless delays. The hospital fought back, protected by layers of policy and power. The family felt small, insignificant, as if their loss were just another case file. In the end, there was a settlement. A number attached to a life that could never be replaced. The hospital never admitted wrongdoing. The doctor continued practicing. Life moved on for everyone except the people left behind. The money helped with bills, with education, with survival. But it didn't bring peace. It didn't bring closure. It didn't fill the empty chair at the dinner table or the silence in the house at night. What destroyed the family wasn't just the loss of a loved one. It was the betrayal of trust, the realization that even the most ordinary moments can turn catastrophic without warning. It was learning that low risk doesn't mean no risk, and that the cost of a small mistake can be unimaginably high. They learned to live with the pain because they had no other choice. They carried his memory forward, speaking his name, telling his stories, refusing to let him be reduced to a statistic or a complication. He was more than a patient. He was a life, a presence, a love that should not have ended that day. And all of it began with a routine surgery, a simple procedure that was supposed to fix a problem, not destroy a family forever.